Welcome back to the Fox Robbins Business Show. Come on in. Come on and sit down, relax. Put aside the
remote.
The remote control, please.
Suffer.
You're going to love it. This won't hurt a bit. This is the Fox Robbins Business Show, which is all about entrepreneurship and small business. And I'm the co-host, Bill Fox. But the other guy, you got to watch out here. But they say this is the ladies out on the outside.
My fans.
Walking up and down the street.
That's
say
right.
that this guy is graceful. He's exquisite, but he is notorious. He is Coach Robbins.
Especially with the ladies, notorious. Don't let my wife know.
We've got a special show. We're going to talk about something I bet you ain't never seen before. This is an incubator. I know I talked to my brother about that, and he said, "What? Who?"
What? An incubator?
And we got
What are you
a
incubating?
special guest. We've got Mr. Harry Henry, who is president of Cape Cod Culinary Incubator. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill.
Harry, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
It's nice of you to put up with his punishment.
This will hurt only a little.
Okay.
And this incubator business. We're going to ask you what is the Cape Cod Culinary Incubator like? Describe the whole concept.
Sure. Well, the concept of an incubator, we'll get to the culinary part. Incubator is to incubate business. People who have a small business or want to get into a business, how do they get the business up off the ground? And how do they grow it? Maybe fledgling or fledgling type of a business to get it to be something bigger.
Right.
So it provides resources to the entrepreneur to help them grow that business. The culinary side, and I should say that we've heard it, the incubator concept, most recently in a lot of tech development, in a lot of software development, where you have facilities like maybe a company like WeWork, who's big in the news right now. Mm-hmm. They provide those kinds of resources, a facility where an individual can go into a building or facility, have co-workers around, have space that they can go help build their business, et cetera, and some collaboration with others.
Right.
On the culinary side, same principle, except you need a kitchen, because now you're talking about people who are making food,
Right.
and they're not going to be just sitting in a desk or behind a computer. They're going to be in a kitchen making food. So think of the incubator concept of providing the ability to know how to help them get permits, the health department permits, how to collaborate with others who may be able to make food, and come up with recipes or products that may work together. But basically it's about having the space, a commercial kitchen that's licensed that they can use, because if you're up and starting a business in the food business,
Right.
Pretty expensive to think you can go build a kitchen or buy a kitchen. But if you have the ability to go in and get a piece of that
Yep.
on a rental basis, a shared kitchen, then it becomes affordable. And that's what we're focused on.
Yep.
Really those resources for the entrepreneur to get their business up and off the ground.
Right.
Well, you also you help people who their restaurants that close down and others who buy and start them back up. I mean, that also happens.
Yes, that happens frequently. As you know, the restaurant business, the failure rate and turnover rate is tough.
Very high.
You know, for our world as a nonprofit, we look at the potential for people who would use a commercial kitchen like this to be, number one, food makers. So that may be somebody you run across at a farmer's market who's made, grandma's spaghetti sauce because everybody said that's great and you should be selling it. So
Right.
there's food makers that make everything from barbecue sauce, spaghetti sauce, chili, granola, baking goods, etc. So food makers are number one. Number two is there are chefs who may be working in a restaurant today, but they have their eye on a prize. And that prize may be that they want to open their own restaurant someday. So they've come up with menus, they've come up with dishes, they want to try them out somewhere. Well, they can't try them out when they're working for somebody else off an existing menu in an
Right.
existing restaurant. So they look to this kind of establishment and look to a culinary incubator as a place to be a test bed a little bit. Then in addition, caterers and food trucks being in a commercial kitchen. So it's that whole span of.
That's your target audience.
That's the target, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When did this incubator that you're working on, when did it start?
Yeah, so the organization got its start in 2013. A fellow by the name of Lee Hill over in Barnstable. He was a self-proclaimed foodie, so he loved to eat, as we all do, but also saw the need on the Cape and around of people who have an interest in creating a business, have an interest in creating some sort of a food product. So he started the organization. And after a couple of years, actually got a grant from the state to help design what this kitchen would look like. So we actually have that. He worked with a local design firm on the Cape. So we had the design. Then the organization sort of laid fallow for a couple of years, and a few got involved about 2 or 3 years ago to sort of revitalize things, get it start to go. And I got involved about 1.5 years ago. So now we're pushing to bring it to fruition.
Right, because it, particularly on Cape Cod, which
Yes.
is what we're talking about for this incubator, it is really needed because there are so many folks
Yeah.
making things in their home kitchen,
Yeah.
grandma's spaghetti sauce, like you say, and they want to expand. They can only do so much in their
Yep.
kitchen at home and using a bedroom for packaging or whatever they're doing and doing their marketing on Facebook, but they
Right.
do want to expand it. And many of them want to do it full-time
Yes.
eventually,
Yes.
you know. But to get started, they need to be able to go to something like the Cape Cod Culinary Kitchen
Right.
and rent 4 hours or time between midnight and 4 in the morning or whatever. They probably have a day job,
Yep.
you know. And this allows them to build up the volume a little bit to really test the concept of the
Yes.
market, and can they actually make this a full-time business for themselves?
Exactly. And the thing is, as you mentioned, the demand. So 2 things I've noticed. So, like I said, I've been involved in about 1.5 years. I don't want to say full-time, but pretty active. And in that time, we have had contact from over 80 people wanting to know, hey, is your kitchen open yet? Do you have a kitchen? Can I rent time? Can I get some hours in a week?
Right.
Whatever. And so that's 80 people. And the variety of food is just amazing.
I've had at least a dozen or more that I said, you're on the Cape, you're making your jams, your jellies, whatever
Yeah,
you're making.
yeah.
Hopefully, this Cape Cod Culinary Kitchen will get up and running soon,
Right.
and it'll be right here where it's
Yeah.
convenient for it. Many of those people called you, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a goal, would you consider, do you have a goal for this, longer range?
To get it open
Goal,
at some period
I
of
mean-
time, or?
Well, the immediate goal is to find a space that we can get into and rent and/or buy. Now, that gets into the whole finances of it, because
It
as a
always does.
nonprofit,
Right,
and a startup nonprofit at that, you're dependent upon fundraisers and grants and those kinds of things.
Right.
So we've spent the past year, I'd say maybe 1.5 years, establishing the base. That is expanding our boards. We have up to 6 board members now. Everybody, I always carry a prop with me, just to keep things in perspective, and the prop is the fork, because it's this end of the business that I know. I know how to eat.
yeah,
Everything else about the business,
yeah,
I
right.
have board members who are pretty well versed and either have run food businesses or have the expertise. So,
Got into wholesaling of food, packaging, marketing, all of
But
those
I was
things.
gonna ask you, your board, are they all restaurant people, or do you try to bring other, you need a legal mind, you need,
Right.
accounting, you need, marketing, you need, you need different kinds of.
Absolutely,
of
different-
strength.
Yeah.
Are
Different
you
skill
looking
sets.
for that on the board?
yeah, we look for financial for sure, especially on the fundraising side. Less so on the accounting and call them,
Right.
but mostly on the fundraising side. The rest of the board has food industry expertise for the most part.
Well, with the legal side, the restaurant business, there's a lot of legality, that is meeting, regulations and
Right.
the liability of running a place like that.
Yeah,
liability.
Especially when you start shipping things.
Yeah, well, that gets different kinds of licenses. What you
That's
can
right.
sell locally versus what you do in distribution, there's different
Exactly.
licenses and,
Right.
of course, different fees and all that.
Right.
I'm not yet at the point of looking for somebody with that legal expertise on the board. If they happen by, that'd be great.
Yep.
But we can, I think, can contract out for that at present
Yep.
time. But the short-term goal is, like I was saying a minute ago, we've spent a lot of time establishing some marketing, some credibility, some getting the name out there. We've done that by getting a couple of grants and putting some things in the marketplace as far as our name with classes and all. We do a monthly newsletter, so we've had to go build up the list of people who are interested in the monthly newsletter and expand the board. So now that we have those things in place, and the money flow a little bit. The money flow is important from a nonprofit, obviously, and we've been fortunate to get a couple of grants, so we can start to get cash flow strained. Now that we have our concerns to where is that kitchen going to be? Where is the space?
Right.
And the thing that I think...
Do you have an ideal place where you, not as, I don't mean a specific street address, but generally, I mean, a Cape is a big place. after
Right.
all.
Yeah, the ideal place, I think, would be in and around Hyannis.
Yeah,
Because
Barnstable
that's
area,
more-
You don't want
central.
to be out in Provincetown
central, yeah.
necessarily, or
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got the driving distance. So we have food makers up in the Eastham, Wellfleet area.
sure.
They would come to Hyannis, but they may not go to Sandwich or Falmouth.
Right.
Right.
The same with Falmouth, they're not necessarily
Yeah.
going to go up to...
Truro, right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So that would be ideal, but, variable as to what comes our way. As far as the location, we don't need to be on Main Street.
No, you don't need visibility.
We don't need visibility. This is not a restaurant.
That's
We
right.
don't need the traffic.
Right.
So we're fine in an industrial area or semi-industrial area, something that has access, but does not have to have street traffic. And therefore, of course, for us, you don't have to pay the rents that you would pay
Right.
if you had...
On Main Street,
On
right.
Main Street,
Right.
exactly.
Well, okay. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the one other thing about the space that we'd like to get, people, it's sort of interesting when you say you're going to put in a kitchen, they immediately think restaurant, or they think that kitchen that's in the back hall of the church or the
Right.
Elks Lodge or whatever. Those could work, but that's not really ideal. Because this is not about a kitchen as you would think that you're going to go in and make something, but it is about a manufacturing process where food makers are going to go, like you said, to wider distribution. They're going to have to get into packaging. You're going to have bottle fillers or other kinds of equipment.
Right.
So it's not your regular kitchen that, you could rent time at.
No, you're not putting it on a dish and sending it through the door. You're actually packaging it now, getting it ready for shipment, et cetera, right?
So you got to
There's a lot
think,
to
you
it.
think production, you think almost like a manufacturing facility
It
of
is
some
a
sort.
manufacturing, it's Hunt's.
Right. Yeah,
Heinz,
exactly,
right,
yeah,
Heinz, yeah.
exactly.
Well, the incubator concept, I mean, there's no need for people who want to get started to operate strictly by themselves, all alone.
Right.
I mean, people can come together, and there's a benefit to that.
Absolutely
You
is,
bet.
yeah. And there's a couple of benefits. One is on the food side, and I've seen examples. We've visited, myself and some of our board members have visited other incubators around the country to see what works and see what kind of model we could bring here, so that we're not trying to do it ourselves
No,
either. you know?
why reinvent the entire wheel?
Yeah,
Right.
and it was really interesting. I was out on the West Coast and visiting an incubator, and the woman who ran it introduced me to someone who was a caterer, as well as these two fellows who were making packaged, it was a fried chicken type of thing. And the caterer happened to be in there preparing, renting time at the same time the fried chicken guys were. And they were just talking, as you would in a normal
Sure,
business setting.
networking.
And she said, well, why don't you add this kind of a spice to it? Because when I serve it, we add this, whatever the spice was.
Right.
These guys tried it, and they brought it to the farmer's market. It was a hit.
Yep.
So the two of them have collaborated now and come up with a different
Brand new brand.
a brand new brand.
No more 14 herbs and spices.
Exactly. And so you have that kind of collaboration that can happen in an incubator space where you have like people in the space.
Was that a nonprofit? And my question that's in my mind is, why have you chosen the nonprofit business model?
Right. So that one actually was not a nonprofit.
Right.
It was a for-profit.
Yep.
This woman had a catering business, I think she said 12 or 14 years, but she quite frankly, she said, I got tired of getting up early.
Burnt out.
And the next thing you know, I'm doing 100 dishes for a wedding that's down the street at 2 o'clock, and I'm running around like crazy.
Sure.
Year after year after year doing that kind of a business.
It'll burn you out.
Yep. And so she decided to open an incubator and run it as a for-profit basis. There are more nonprofits than for-profits. There's about 300 to 400 culinary incubators around the country.
Yep.
Okay. The closest ones to us, for example, there's a for-profit one over in Rhode Island called Hope in Maine.
Cranston, right?
Warren.
Warren.
Right on the border.
Yeah.
And then there's a nonprofit up in Dorchester called Commonwealth Kitchen.
Yep.
Okay. Both work to some extent. The for-profit ones I've spoken to, unless you're in a big city,
Yes.
big population, tough to make a profit.
Yep.
Very tough.
Yep.
The one I mentioned was in San Diego, and
Big city.
yeah, big city, but also the interesting thing is, and we should probably talk at some point about regulations. The health department there covers the county. Health departments here are town by town by town.
Well, Cape Cod.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you've
that's
got
15 towns.
you got
15 towns,
15
58.
towns on the Cape.
15 fees, 15 different sets of regulations. So
Yeah.
she was in a marketplace where somebody making food could sell to any town, any farmer's market in any part of the county.
Right,
So she did well because of population size.
right.
There was another for-profit that was actually operated out of Brooklyn, and I can't remember the name of it any longer, but they closed up. It was started by private equity with some VC money in, and they put money in and they opened 6 different incubators. Portland, Providence, Brooklyn, they went as far down as Dallas, but they had
Yeah.
6 of them.
Right.
And it failed within a year. And it failed basically because they tried to franchise it. They tried to cookie cutter it. And that doesn't work
Yeah.
because every locale has a different marketplace, different menu, different food, different sourcing.
demographics, different laws, different, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. There is a combination model, and I think ours will be a combination model of for-profit and
Sure,
nonprofit.
there are.
You need the nonprofit because of the grants and the
That's
other
right.
things you can do out of the incubator.
And
Like
they're all tax deductible to the grant.
some of our education programs,
Right.
some of the workforce programs where we're trying to develop people who want
Right.
to get into the culinary business.
yeah.
So you want that nonprofit
Sure.
status for a lot
Part
of
of
that.
it, yeah.
The actual business model of operating the shared commercial kitchen, it's a for-profit model because you're basically charging people a membership fee.
Yep.
They join the incubator,
Right,
and then there's packages that they select
Yep.
based on rental of how much time.
right.
I need 4 hours every Monday, or I
Right.
need 6 hours a week, or whatever it
Between
is.
10 and,
Right.
right,
And so there's a fee for that.
yeah.
And then separately, the successful ones also charge a fee for storage.
Right.
And the storage revenue equals the kitchen revenue. Because if you're a food maker and you're gonna use the kitchen 4 hours on Tuesdays and Fridays, you're not gonna lug your stuff back and forth. You've got pots and spoons and knives,
Right.
and you're not gonna schlep that stuff back
Right.
and forth.
Right.
So you wanna store it, and you
Right.
probably will have food products you wanna
Might
store.
have some food that needs refrigeration,
Right.
so you don't want to be lugging that in the truck. Yeah,
Exactly. So the facility that we need to get into not
Good
only
size.
has to have the kitchen with enough space and enough prep space, multiple ovens, et cetera, it's got to have storage.
right,
And that's refrigeration storage as
And
well
that
as dry
takes space.
storage. And that's a lot of space.
right. And it's got to have shipping capabilities.
Gotta have a
and
dock.
You got to have a dock,
Yep,
but yeah,
yep.
right.
So we speak to and have spoken to quite a few places in the past few months to say, hey, you ought to take a look at XYZ Church or go call the Elks or whatever. And when you go have that conversation with them, I've come up with 3 questions I asked them if the space is applicable. And number 1 is, do you mind if we're in there at 3 a.m.? And people go, oh, no, well, the janitor's not here,
right.
or there's tenants upstairs, you know?
Yeah.
Well, like you said before, these people have a job, and they're starting a business, and this may be their second business, and they can't get in there till 9 at night, and they're gonna work overnight.
Right.
So you've got to have a facility that can come and go, independent access. And the second one I always ask them is that, can I have more than one chef in the kitchen at once? Like, oh, it's kind of small, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Well, if this is going to work, and I've got a potential marketplace of 80 to 100 people, you're going to have multiple folks in there. Now, I'm
Right.
not going to put 2 bakers in the kitchen and schedule them at the same time.
Right.
But somebody who's baking over here making
Deep
granola,
frying, granola.
whatever it may
cold,
be,
Yeah.
you can schedule that so you have multiple people, and that's the way the business is going to work in order to make it self-sufficient on the
Exactly.
financial side.
You're selling the time
Right.
to
So if you,
several people if the space is adequate.
exactly. So if you go into the local church kitchen and you talk about having 2 of these people in there, it's like, no, we can't really do that.
Yep.
And then the third one is, can they leave their stuff? That is the storage question. So we've had people say, well, you ought to talk to the schools, either Four
Right.
Cs or Cape Tech or whatever. Well, they don't want them leaving their stuff.
Right.
But the food maker does not want to be carrying their
Right.
stuff back and forth.
Absolutely.
So it's a pretty interesting niche dynamic that this market calls for, and therefore that sort of limits what
So
we
the
can
one thing
look
that
for.
comes up, when you got a kitchen, that means cleanup.
Yeah,
You need
That
that
means a
too. They
mess.
have to
Yes.
clean up after themselves.
Yeah, who does, I mean,
Their mother doesn't work there.
I just had to clean up the kitchen this morning. But
So-
what
so
about that?
yeah,
Mary?
so there's 2 things. Number one is all of these work on the principle that you leave it the way you found it,
Exactly.
right?
Uh-huh.
Now, that doesn't,
Oh, cooks hate that.
yeah, cooks hate that, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, those are the rules.
And, not everybody, of course, abides by that.
I mean,
So you-
cowboys don't like to shovel out the barn.
No, they don't. So the successful commercial kitchen has security cameras.
You have
So
to.
you know who left the stuff on the,
Yeah.
on the sink there. And then also you have an operations manager.
Yep.
And they may not be there 24/7, but they know who came and went.
Because the cameras are.
Right. And that-
Big Brother is watching everywhere.
Yeah, and then typically, once every couple of weeks, you do hire a cleaning crew to come in and do a pretty thorough
Yeah,
cleaning.
real
because-
thorough cleaning, like a kitchen, a good restaurateur would
Yeah.
once a month come in and really
And
scrub
the
it down.
the frequency on that's dependent upon how many folks you have
Sure.
in, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, every month.
Right.
But generally, part of your agreement that you sign when you rent the space is you're
Clean
picking
up.
up after yourself,
Yeah.
and you're leaving
Leave
it.
it the way you found, well,
I had
the way you found
I had a
it.
kitchen in all of my stores,
Mhm.
I was in just electrical distribution.
Yeah,
But I had signs made for every one of those kitchens, clean up after yourself, your mother doesn't work here.
exactly, exactly.
Harry, who is interested in a Cape Cod culinary incubator? I mean,
Yeah.
describe the market. What's going
Yeah.
on here? You must see an interest, and you also, you said there was, you mentioned there's an incubator up near Boston.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you have one like in Plymouth for Southeast Mass, but instead of all the way down on the Cape? Aren't you taking a big risk that you don't have a big enough market, or what's your thinking?
Well, I think, so two parts, right? So number one, as I mentioned, that the market that we've seen is the food maker, somebody who's
Sure.
making cookies, making bread, making chili, salsa, whatever it might be.
Granola, whatever,
Yeah.
cold, hot
Yeah.
food, fried.
So and the chef who wants to open a restaurant, overflow. So we've got quite a few requests from people.
Pop-up kitchens.
Yeah.
That's a hot one now, that people need this
Well-
space because they're gonna hold a pop-up kitchen this weekend at
Right.
whatever, right?
Well, our thinking is that if we get the right space with the right size, you not only have a kitchen, but you have an open space, an open room that can be, on one hand, classroom, because there are classes you want to
Education.
hold,
Right,
but also you can convert it into a pop-up kitchen.
pop-up kitchen right there, right.
And so we think that's part of the operation.
Yep.
So the chef who wants to do a pop-up kitchen is part of the market.
Yep,
Overflow, I had inquiry from somebody who said, hey, we're doing a renovation, we can't fulfill our production, I can't even remember what the product was, but we can't fulfill our production, but can we do some of our cooking in your kitchen?
Sure.
While the renovation's being done?
Right.
I mentioned food trucks. There's about 15 food trucks on the Cape.
Very popular business. I probably have helped 24 folks in southeastern Massachusetts start food trucks, and they're very successful.
Well, one thing a food truck has to have from a licensing standpoint is they have to have a commercial kitchen that they go to every day.
Right.
To change the water out, but also to wash the utensils and all that. And then the other one is caterers.
Caterers, yeah, where
Caterers
they
have to
can- yeah,
operate out of a
right.
commercial kitchen. So, but why it's, here on the Cape as opposed to Plymouth? Well, part of it is that, we started here in the Cape and there is fair demand and people don't really want to drive up to Boston or wherever.
Yeah.
Right.
There might be one that works in Plymouth, I don't know, that market. We've not seen the demand from that market. We've definitely seen the demand on the
The
Cape.
demand definitely is over the bridge here on,
Yep.
Cape Cod Island.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
yeah.
Harry, we haven't finished with you.
Uh-oh,
You're in trouble, Harry.
I'm in trouble.
We haven't finished with you. We'll do a second episode if
There's
you don't
another
mind.
meeting.
This would be, part one, we'll have a part two.
Okay.
So we want the audience, we want you guys to come back for part two because Harry is just warming up. I mean, the propeller is not yet even up to total
He just took
speed
his
yet.
fork out of his pocket, for
took the
God's
fork
sake.
out.
You
It's
got
not
the
even
fork
dirty.
out. Yeah, right. So come back for the part two. This is the Fox Robbins Business Show. All of the episodes for Fox Robbins are uploaded to YouTube, for viewer convenience. You can see it anytime. You go to YouTube on your computer. There's a search box. You enter just one single word, Fox Robbins, Foxrobbins. That's this guy here.
Yeah, I'm on the back end of that word, as usual.
And click away, there's a whole library of shows, and which will shortly will include the incubator concept that Harry's giving to us. And come back for part two, and we'll see you next time.